The Dallas Stars and the Buffalo Sabres have played many games against each other over past seasons. But one player's actions in perhaps the most important game in either franchise's history are still considered controversial to this day. Welcome back to another episode of Alternate Hockey History, the series where we revisit key moments throughout hockey history to see how an alternate outcome might have changed the history of the sport. In today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at the now infamous moment between these two teams and ask the question: what if Brett Hull's triple overtime goal didn't count? To remind you of what actually took place, allow me to take you back to June 19th, 1999 at the Marine Midland Arena in Buffalo. Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Buffalo Sabres and the Dallas Stars. Dallas were leading 3-2 in a grueling series where 3 of the past 5 games were won by a single goal lead. Both teams were trying their hardest to clinch their respective franchise their first championship in their team's history. After goals from Dallas's Jiri Lehtinen and Buffalo's Stu Barnes, the game remained a 1-1 tie at the end of regulation time. The game entered overtime and continued to go on and on and on until 14 minutes and 51 seconds into triple overtime when Stars forward and future Hall of Famer Brett Hull put the puck past Sabres goaltender Dominik Hasek off a rebound to end the game and clinch the 1999 Stanley Cup Championship for the Dallas Stars. However, Brett Hull's cup-clinching goal was considered to be a no-goal by some spectators, especially Sabres fans, due to Brett Hull's foot supposedly being in Hasek's crease when he scored the goal, something that was considered a crease violation during the league at the time and was therefore against the NHL rulebook. This call by the officials would have meant that the goal didn't count and the game would continue. But the goal was given and the cup was lifted by the Stars. To say the fallout from this decision was controversial is a huge understatement. The referees of the game chose not to review the goal at the time, although it was said that NHL officials had reviewed the sequence of play several times. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman addressed the goal and was quoted saying, "The rule was absolutely correctly applied. It was a non-issue. Everyone understands it was the right call." Even the NHL's director of officiating at the time, Brian Lewis, said that Hull didn't commit a crease violation because, and I quote, "Hull had possession of the puck when his skate entered the crease, a rule that had been introduced earlier in the season." This decision understandably incensed Buffalo Sabres head coach Lindy Ruff at the time and enraged Sabres fans everywhere, who began calling this now infamous bout the no-goal game. Many Sabres fans are still bitter about this whole ordeal almost 20 years later and look back on it as the day that they were robbed of the cup by Brett Hull's skate. But what if the goal was waved off? What if Hull didn't score on that rebound? How would things have been different? For starters, this goal being waved off would likely mean that this game would remain as controversial as it is in reality, but for completely different reasons. If this goal didn't count, then the Stars coaching staff and Dallas Stars fans everywhere, who quite rightly would have felt that they had just scored the game winner and ended the series in their favour, would have been just as furious as the Sabres coaches and fans were in reality. To think that you have just scored the Stanley Cup clinching goal only to have the referees blow the play dead and wave off the goal would have been just as dramatic, if not more so, than when the goal actually counted, as the collective breath of two fan bases would have been held, only to be released in sighs of relief or disappointment at the game continuing past what many thought was its conclusion. If you think Stars fans would have been angry at a disallowed goal, imagine how furious they would have been if the goal was disallowed and then Buffalo scored to win the game and tie the series. It would have been a good thing that game was played in Buffalo, that's for sure. That said, this controversial goal not being scored and the game continuing would mean that both teams were still very much in with a chance to win the 1999 Stanley Cup Championship. For the Dallas Stars, this alternate reality still could and likely would have resulted in them winning the cup, as all they had to do was find a way to put one more goal past Dominik Hasek in that game, but in less controversial fashion as to avoid the officials waving off yet another goal and crushing the hearts of Stars fans everywhere yet again. One more goal in this Game 6 triple overtime still meant the Stars would win the game and lift the cup, just like they did in reality. Let's not forget that if the goal was waved off by the referees due to Hull's foot being in the crease, Dallas wouldn't have automatically lost the game. They just needed to find another way to score to clinch the finals in 6 games rather than let the series go to a Game 7. Bearing in mind that the two teams supposedly played pretty evenly during the triple overtime, with each side getting solid scoring chances, despite the growing fatigue of playing almost an entire second game's worth of extra time, this game still could have easily gone either way. I think some people, especially some Buffalo Sabres fans, often make the mistake that if this goal was disallowed, then Buffalo would have automatically won the Game 6 and tied the series. It's not as if Brett Hull's goal tied the game with seconds left on the clock in regulation time. The majority of the regulation time in this game saw the two teams tied at 1-1, so it didn't really seem like the hockey gods wanted this game to finish in regulation time. Let's not forget that Dallas were also leading the final series 3-2 at this point, so even if Buffalo did score the triple overtime winner and win this Game 6, the Dallas Stars could still have had the chance to clinch the series in a Game 7. Whereas Buffalo losing Game 6 eliminated them from the playoffs completely. The Stars had a little more breathing room should the game not go their way. Also, if Dallas did somehow lose this series and have to watch Buffalo lift the cup instead due to Hull's goal being waved off, they would have missed out on the only championship the team has won in their franchise's history. Whilst the Dallas Stars would return to the Stanley Cup Finals and come close to a second straight championship the following season, during the 2000 Stanley Cup playoffs, they were eliminated by Martin Brodeur and the New Jersey Devils. By Dallas not winning the cup against Buffalo, many of the players on the 1999 Stars roster might never have seen their name etched into the cup, and the franchise might still be chasing their first championship. Since their cup win and following finals loss, the Stars have never made it past the conference finals and have made the playoffs 8 times in the following 17 seasons. This shows that Brett Hull getting the call in his favour has had a greater impact on the Stars organisation and the team's overall legacy than you might initially think. Without this goal, Dallas could still be a cupless franchise and be considered just as mediocre as the Buffalo Sabres have been since this game. However, on the flip side for the Buffalo Sabres, this alternate reality would have meant that the game continued on after the disallowed goal, and Buffalo would have had the chance to tie the series by scoring their own triple overtime winner in Game 6. This scenario would have set up a Game 7 in the series, where Buffalo could well have come from behind their previous series deficit to win the series, which would have completely rewritten the franchise's history by finally winning hockey's ultimate prize for the first time. This would have been huge for the Buffalo Sabres, as the franchise has never won the cup and has never really come close to it in the seasons following this game. The Sabres have only made it as far as the conference finals since 1999 and have only made the playoffs 6 times in the last 18 seasons. If Buffalo score the triple overtime winner instead and win the subsequent Game 7, then the team would have been able to capitalise on the Stanley Cup Championship window that they had created for themselves over the years prior that was quickly beginning to close after this series due to the personnel changes and players ageing or regressing in the following years. Also, Hull's goal being disallowed would mean that Brett Hull likely wouldn't be so hated among Buffalo Sabres fans. Many Buffalo fans still haven't forgiven Hull for scoring that goal to this very day. But if he never scored it, then Sabres fans would have no reason to be mad at him. If Hull scored the series clincher in a less controversial manner later in the game or in a Game 7, chances are he would still be somewhat disliked by Sabres fans, but not to the extent that he is or was after this goal. Sabres fans hated this guy. And can you blame them? His goal banished their franchise into mediocrity for the next 2 decades. I can see why they're upset, to be honest. In addition, if Brett Hull's goal doesn't count, but he goes on to score the game winner in a more conventional way later on in the period, then Buffalo fans, whilst likely still being upset with the final score, wouldn't be able to justify being so mad at Brett Hull or the referees of the game to this very day. If Hull scored the game winner properly, without a foot in the crease or without a different controversial way, the hatred of Sabres fans towards Brett Hull would have less of a leg to stand on, and they likely wouldn't have complained about the final result so much as they actually did, as they might have felt they had lost the game more fair and square rather than due to a bad call by the referees. After all, fans cannot stand it when a referee tries to take over a game rather than just doing their job. It really pisses some fans off no end. So, in conclusion, if Brett Hull's triple overtime goal didn't count on that June night in 1999, this final series could have ended completely differently. Buffalo could have rallied behind a no-goal call from the referees and come from behind in the series to clinch their franchise's first Stanley Cup championship. Or the Dallas Stars might have had a different hero in that triple overtime, or in the Game 7 that followed should it have been needed. One team could have changed the history of the NHL and have finally won their team's first championship, or the eventual victors of the game still could have won the spoils. Regardless of which team deserved to win, or whichever outcome this alternate reality would have created, there's no doubt that this Stanley Cup Final Game 6 going to triple overtime was bound to be controversial in some shape or form. And with that, I'm going to end this video. What do you think would have happened if Hull's foot wasn't in the crease or the goal was disallowed? Also, is there another alternate hockey history you would like me to explore? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye! A big thank you to Chris Gadsby, Max Artis, and Nat Marlowe for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.